At the height of the gold rush, Rick Ness was one of the most successful miners. He lost his mind when a rookie mechanic fixed his $1 million excavator. A little boy did fix his $1 million machine. We will look at the details and ups and downs of Rick Ness's mining operations in this video. We will see how the seasons changed, how technology broke down, and how driven Ness was to find rare gold. Come with us as we look at the exciting shows, with a focus on how Rick Ness's never-ending search for wealth in the hard desert changes, succeeds, and fails. In his never-ending search for money, Rick finds himself traveling into uncharted territory because he thinks he has found his most important goal yet. His huge machine for moving dirt is gone, and his team is getting smaller. The odds are against him. When Rick realizes how serious the situation is and posts that a skilled mechanic is needed right away, it's a turning point. Now, a 20-year-old student becomes an important figure because he is asked to show off his skills by building the complex, multi-million-dollar 750 backhoe. The apprentice carefully attaches the bucket and 750 book stick, showing how complicated the job is. They were moved safely by a movable base set to a small gauge. The thought of having to deal with Duncan Creek's various terrain adds another level of difficulty. Torsten, the apprentice, changes the tracks expertly by slowly loosening the bolts that hold the chassis in place. He cleverly positions the digger with the help of the boom, showing how creative the team is when things go wrong. The 750's bucket is particularly impressive because it is so big. It's 3 times bigger than the 480's. Time is important for Rick and his team because they work in less than a half week. Their staff is only 4 people, and they don't have a fixed driver. Rick's earlier success, in which he made an average of just over 70 ounces of gold per week, is very different from this situation. The problems that are coming up show how strong, flexible, and determined the team is as they keep going after their huge gold goal. The group is aware that Carl, the gold miner, is not there and stresses how important he is to fixing machine problems. They both hope Carl gets better and are worried about taking care of the equipment's upkeep without a trained tech. Most people agree that Torsten's ability to put together the 750 digger was a turning point that made the mining business a lot better. At this time of year, it's hard for Rick to find a plumber, so he's thankful that Torsten helped him right away. As the team gathers for the weekly gold weigh, Rick talks about the effects of having a smaller staff and the need for a worker to fix problems with the pumps. Even with all of these problems, the crew stays friends, and they raise a glass to the amazing gold crop that only 4 crew members, including the new Torsten, were able to handle. The story shows how flexible, determined, and flexible the crew was in getting past problems so they could reach their gold mining goals. The team is still dealing with the problems of the season. They are looking ahead with a mix of determination and confidence as the successful end of the gold weight has given them hope. And yet, none of these problems affect Rick in any way. In fact, they might even be a good thing. We can see that Brennan has a hard time because he can't find any good land. He doesn't care and takes a wild guess as to where a new cut should be made. Almost magically, the chosen area is cleaned up and fully open in a matter of seconds. When people find possible gold in a test pan, they decide to call the new site the Bacon Strip. During the gold rush, there is a tense moment when the parking brake on a rock truck gets caught on a pile of pay dirt. Even though the rescue is shown with dramatic music and quick cuts, the story makes fun of the fact that, to everyone's surprise, no one dies. The episode ends with a smooth cleanup that yields a respectable 75.92 ounces of gold. But things change in the gold rush game when Rick's team goes through a number of staff changes. Riley is the rock truck driver he gets right away after losing the first one. A slightly inflated story about a rock truck losing a tire shows how the crew reacted to what turned out to be a pretty small problem. The following day takes a surprising turn when Riley, the new driver, suddenly disappears. The crowd gets to see Rick's girlfriend learn how to drive a rock truck after she offers to take over. As a joke, the announcer calls this part of the show the perfect blend of boredom and boredom. Rick finds another 47 ounces of gold just as cleanup time is about to start. This brings his season total to 502 ounces. When Riley comes back the next day, he has a huge scar across his face. And the story continues. He gives an account that includes a fight, a trip to the hospital, and having his phone taken away by the police. Even though things didn't go as planned, Rick is glad to have Riley back with the team. The crew's original happiness and excitement quickly faded when they realized there was a major problem. There was a sudden wave of fear among the team, because that's when they found out there was a crack between the plant and the pre-wash that opened up without warning and let water out, which is very bad for the mining operation. Figuring out why there is warning is easy once the two 9-inch steel pins that were joining them are found to be missing. But even though this is a worrying development, no one seems to care. The crew makes 2 new pins to fix the problem. As the team tries to get past the hurdles, more problems come up because rocks can pass through the holes to sink steadily. When he sees the excavator sunk down there, he appears to be somewhat dissatisfied. At this time, Tony arrives at the location and expresses his desire to retrieve the submerged excavator. He immediately ceases all of his mining activities because he is unable to continue with the mining endeavors without the excavator, and he cannot allow his machine to continue in this manner. It was initially their intention to pull the sinking excavator out of the water with the assistance of 2 additional excavators. However, this endeavor has not produced any results at all. They need to broaden the scope of their struggles in order to bring heavy gear to a state where it can function properly. As soon as Tony comes up with a strategy to bring the excavator through the door, they are prepared to put it into action without delay. He divulges his strategy to bring in further reinforcements. It is his intention to bring the 18-ton D6 dozer, as well as the enormous 115-ton D11 dozer. In order to construct a sturdy foundation for the excavator, he intends to first remove the water from the area surrounding the submerged excavator, and then, with the assistance of a D6 dozer, force the coarse tailing into the hole. Last but not least, the colossal D11, which is a monster with 850 horsepower, will bring out the excavator while it is on the sturdy reinforced ramp. Within the plan, they discover a glimmer of optimism. In spite of the fact that the idea appears to be fantastic, it turns out to be quite challenging to implement due to the enormous amount of dirty water. Tony assumes control of the D6 dozer and starts the process of removing the water from the area. As it should have been, it starts to demonstrate the progress that has been made. On the other side, Mike begins to add coarse tailing to the pit, and it proves to be really beneficial for them. Even if the severe rain in Paradise Hill slows down the process of gold hunting, Tony is still optimistic that he will be able to harvest more gold out of the 80 pup cut, because it has proven to be quite fertile in terms of producing gold. Tony and his family are currently seated at the dinner table, which is located in their regular location. He laughs at Mike's suggestion that he should be held accountable for allowing their excavator to become submerged in the muck, because he has been driving the excavator without paying attention to the directions. It appears that he is pleased to be able to release the tension in a span of 2 to 3 hours. Despite the fact that Tony claims that the success is the result of his engineering and wisdom, Mike says that it is relatively simple to retrieve the excavator. Tony laughs as he makes this assertion. In the meantime, Mike is weighing the gold that he has acquired by pouring it into the tray. Tony requires 300 ounces of gold in order to maintain the functioning of their family's system. As soon as Mike starts pouring gold out of the jar, the entire family immediately focuses their attention on the scale, and they start reading it out loud. Almost immediately, the readout goes beyond 300 and to 500 ounces, which is significantly higher than what they had anticipated. The entire amount of gold that they acquire is 4,601 ounces, and they receive 500 ounces of gold that is worth $850,000. As a result of their excursion that took place in extremely severe weather conditions, they consider it to be exceptional. Jason Fraser, another mining boss, has arrived to Tony Beat's Hunker Cut along with his Winchester crew. This is occurring on the opposite side of the fence. They have been in Yukon for the 400 ounces of gold. Tony gives his blessing to the proposal because he will profit 30% from it. As of right now, they have already reached 106 ounces, and the entire cut has been thoroughly investigated. The truck that John Van Tuyl is driving to the Winchester is equipped with a double-barrel wash plant that he has constructed at his home. He is holding the steering wheel. Over the course of the season, it has been functioning fairly well, and he is still holding out hope that it will continue to function in the same manner. As the third member of their skeleton crew, Butch, who was formerly employed as a logger, goes through the process of becoming an excavator operator, he goes from being a novice to being deeply appreciative. In the midst of his announcement that he is on the final thread of 10,000 yards, the excavator suddenly hits a setback. In the course of its operation, the chain of the excavator breaks. Following his descent from the excavator, He makes a beeline for Jason in order to convey the news that the trammel has ceased functioning. Upon Jason's arrival, they investigate the situation and discover that the chain that is dangling down the excavator is the cause of the machine's inability to function properly. They discover that the chain has been severed from the master link, which is responsible for holding the entire chain together. If the master link has become inoperable, the Winchester weapon system will be unable to spin its twin barrel wash system. They have arrived at the conclusion that in order to avoid any delays in their work, they need to locate an additional master link to the chain. They search through a large bag of links and correctly identify the one that can be of assistance in the event that it is needed. However, John instructs Butch to attach the master link that is broken. He requests that he activate the TRL by turning the black button on the opposite side of the device to the opposite position. Subsequently, he requests that he let it go slowly while holding it. After that, he instructs him to move his hand slightly, since he does not want to cause his hand to get more compressed. Immediately after he raises his hand, the chain is unable to reach its wheel and they are forced to halt it for a period of time. They give it another go in an effort to recreate the procedure, and this time, they are able to make some further headway. During this time, Jason arrives at the location with the master link and climbs up the ladder in order to execute an assault on the chain. Finally, the Winchester crew succeeds in continuing their mining operation after the hard 2 hours of labor with the chain. They have a limited amount of time to meet their objective of 200 ounces.